The Weekend Journal on News Talk 580 WTCM. I'm Jack O'Malley. Yeah, we come your way every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. right here on News Talk 580. And later in the morning, early afternoon, I post the segments of the show on YouTube and on Facebook. So hopefully you're listening when we air on Saturday mornings. But in case you miss it, know that it's there for you. Or better yet, you want to play it back for family and friends. That's the whole idea. Oh my, yeah, well, I'll tell you what, yes, Jack O'Malley here with you. The first full day of summer. We've got a heat wave out there, heat warnings and all of that stuff, so let's enjoy it, right? I have a feeling that in the next weeks and days to come, a lot of boating and fishing and all kinds of good things in northern Michigan, so let's enjoy. But, of course, make sure Saturday mornings, you're right here on News Talk 580 for the Weekend Journal. All right, let's get back to Lansing and what's going on here. In one way, it was a very quiet week, but in another, maybe not so. What happened was the Senate was in session. The House was not. Both of them would have taken, and the Senate did too, Thursday off because it was Juneteenth. So basically they were only going to be in session Tuesday and Wednesday. The Senate was. The House, though, a group of Republican legislators and Republican elected officials from across the state were invited to go to the White House. No, not to just rub elbows with the Donald, which from what I heard from the folks who went, the Donald was busy worrying about the Middle East. I think he was never seen. But what they did do was they talked with parts of the administration. Now, you could say, oh, if you're not a big Republican fan, oh, that was just rubbing elbows. It was a love fest. That is a waste of taxpayer money. Well, I would argue it wasn't for the simple reason that they're the party in power, right? They're the ones in Washington that are making those big decisions on federal stuff. And if Michigan is this quiet little mouse and they never hear from them, then Michigan's not going to get anything. I believe these leaders did exactly what you're supposed to do, just as I defended the governor when she went and talked to Trump about, the Suffrage Air National Guard and the disaster stuff up in here in northern Michigan. So it was a good trip. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't get a few, tourist shots in front of the White House and that sort of thing. But who can argue that? Now, some people did kind of chide the Speaker Hall. Well, look at that. He should be in Lansing talking about the education system and not in Washington. Well, the governor, who's part of those discussions, was in Australia on a trade mission. So actually, it was probably a good time to go. So interesting what happened in Washington. Now, there was discussion about the federal government's, one big beautiful bill. A lot of people saying that different funds here in the state of Michigan will be cut, and that will hurt people in Michigan. Well, Speaker Hall, when asked about that, said Democrats talk about a significant portion of the state budget coming from federal dollars. The bigger percentage of state budget that is federal money, the more control the feds have over the states, and that is very true. But the more and more control that the federal government takes over the states, the fewer real decisions the states have to make on their own. And being a states' rights kind of guy, I understand exactly what he's talking about. Now, the other discussions that were going on were about the education situation. Now, Speaker Hall did get back in time on Wednesday to have a meeting with Winnie Brinks, who is the Senate leader, and the governor, who I guess did a Zoom call from Australia somewhere, and the speaker. So they did get to start talking about these budget negotiations, primarily right now on education, that because of that July 1st deadline. Education is the focus. The rest of the state budget, they have till the end of October to get totally worked out. Now, the K through 12 budget, that's one that's got everybody up in arms because the Democratic budget added lots and lots of money to the budget, the education budget, but I think it was $10,004 or $10,008 per pupil, which would have been a raise. But the Republicans, again, just in a real brief, synopsis, said, look, we're going to do this and this, but we're going to take away the categoricals, which we'll talk about in a second, and just say, look, here's, instead of 10,000 per pupil, every district's going to get 12. And then you can do with that extra money however you see fit. So the Democrats say, no, you can't do away with those categoricals. The Republicans, as I would see it, are saying, look, maybe this particular, and a categorical is an area that says, okay, this is where you can use this amount of money and only for that. Okay, so, $100. You can use $100. That's all you can spend. Or that's got to be used only on that. One of the most high-profile example of that is free breakfast and lunch for the kids. And, of course, people, you've taken away the free lunches. And I know they're important, but hear me out here. So what the Democrats are saying, well, now a school district might not, do this for the kids, or they'll only do it for the kids who can't afford it, which then stigmatizes it, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Republicans are saying, look, maybe you're a district that doesn't have that problem, but you force this amount of money. It has to be used for that. If it's not used for this, you can't use it for anything. Or you will have to go back to a system of the kids who need the free lunch get it. The others don't get it free. Point being is, again, using that as the example, maybe you're a district that doesn't use that $100 for lunch, but maybe you only use $80. You can take that other $20 and use it somewhere else that you need the money. So, unlike a categorical, which says only for this, with the Republican plan, whether it's good or not, I'm just trying to explain it to you, you can use any leftover money for something else in your district that you need. And Chairman Tim Kelly of the K through 12 budget in the Republican Party, as he said last week, is, look, we're saying to the school boards, the local school boards, hey, do what you think is right for your district, as opposed to Lansing telling that district what's important. I can see where there's some gnashing of teeth, because sometimes it's easier to just do what you're told as opposed to being, well, there's nothing we can do. They told us we had to spend the money there, as opposed to saying, why'd you spend the money that way? We'll see. All right, let's go to the higher ed budget. And if you remember, what happened was they cut the monies going to U of M and MSU and distributed it to the other 13 public universities. Well, that's created some gnashing of the teeth as well. And according to Speaker Hall, the other universities are saying, hey, thank you. The Republicans put out a handout from a press conference, and on there were statements from CMU, Western Michigan, Wayne State University, and Michigan Technical University, all saying they were supportive of the budget because they got an increase for the first time like in years. So one of the things that the Republicans have said about that cutting U of M and MSU was, well, they can use those huge endowments that they have. $4 billion, I think, is what U of M has. MSU is smaller. Well, they're saying legally they can't do that. Those endowments were donated, so it was only for this scholarship or for that, this, that, or the other thing. Chris Kolb, the vice president of government relations at U of M, said the claim that the university can absorb the cut by using endowments, not accurate. It's not a rainy day fund or a budget backfill. It's made up of more than 13,000 donors, designated funds that are legally restricted and support specific purposes such as scholarships, research, patient care, professorships. I think U of M and MSU should prioritize Michigan students first rather than foreign students that pay cash, according to Chair Greg Markkinen. So that debate will go on. So now the idea of the K through 12 budget being done by July 1st, the discussion there is Tim Kelly, the Republican chair, says, yeah, I think we can get we're at about 70% right now. I think we can get it done. So the question is, will the Democrats in any way, shape, or form try to hold it up? Now, one of the things that I think is interesting, and I mentioned it last week, is the Republicans have done something I think is kind of unique. They've changed the budget so much that they, even if they don't get 75% of what they've asked for, that 25% they did is huge change in previous budgets. Again, with the idea of, I think Tim Kelly said it in a way that he says, look, the categorical system of X amount of money for each of these individual things, that categorical system hasn't worked. We're 44th in the nation in our production of what we're doing educationally. Let's try something different. So many people think, especially in education, just pour more money on it. We had the director of Launch Michigan on last week, and she even said it's not, you can't say that money isn't important. Obviously it is. But the way we go about things in the state of Michigan need to change. Well, maybe this is part of that. We'll see. All right, let's see what else is going on here. Michigan House Speaker embraces the cuts from the White House. Speaker Matt Hall, coming back from Washington, says he is okay with the cuts to Medicaid and food assistance despite their potential impacts. He says, I can't force the governor to spend tax dollars wisely, he said in an interview at the White House, but President Trump and the Congress can because they're the ones who are entrusting her with the dollars. And as I understand it, what they're saying is if you pay out fraudulent monies and you don't give it to the people who deserve, there's a problem there, you're going to have to pay that back. And according to many records, Michigan is paying for Medicaid and My Care, I think is what it's called, to people who shouldn't get it. And one of the things the federal ask is, look, if you're of a certain age, 18, healthy, you can either be going to school or you can be looking for work if you want to get Medicaid. You can't just sit there and say, I'm unemployed, I can't do this or I can't do that. If you are healthy and 18 plus, you have to do something to also get those funds. So again, it's an interesting argument. And again, it comes down to, as I see it, we are 36, from a federal standpoint, we are $36 trillion in debt. Again, take that to your house. I've got some money on a credit card. I bought some appliances and I put it on a credit card. It's bugging me. I got to get that paid off, right? Because I don't want to have to be paying all that interest. $36 trillion. Somewhere for all these decades, we've just been saying, oh yeah, add it on. We can put it on a credit card. Well, somewhere along the line, we're going to default. And I know these cuts are tough, but maybe we should have done something differently 10 or 15 years ago, right? And so it's easy to say, you can't make these cuts. Well, what happens if we default on $36 trillion? Then I think we're going to be defaulting on more than what they're talking about now. So again, an interesting discussion. Let's see what's next. Okay. Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist and 54 Democratic state legislators, including House Minority Leader Ronje Puri, signed on to a letter of national Democrats signing a letter saying that H.R. 1, House Resolution 1, that would, the big, beautiful bill, should not go through, and they have their opposition. Again, what are we going to do? Somewhere along the line, those cuts have got to be made by us, or they're just going to happen to us. And I don't know if we want that. All right, we are, this is the Weekend Journal. Jack O'Malley here with you on News Talk 580. Thanks for tuning in. Rolling along with our Lansing update, the Attorney General's office executed a search warrant this week in the downtown headquarters of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. What? Yeah, they say this is presumably related to state grants managed by MEDC. A person for MEDC told news agencies that they have been cooperating fully and voluntarily. There has been word, though, that there was a search warrant executed at a private home, which is this Faye Bedouin, who has been a $20 million taxpayer-funded grant awarded to her that was spent improperly, et cetera, et cetera. The Detroit Free Press reported that neighbors confirmed Farmington Hills police vehicles were outside her home. So we assume that that is what's happening. So we'll keep an eye on it. But it's pretty amazing that the Attorney General raided the Michigan Economic Development Corp. This is a kind of interesting, kind of goes along with what we talked about last week with regard to the fact that our birth rates are down, right? The ratio of senior citizens to children has swung massively from 1970 to today, according to an MLive article. In 1970, thanks to baby boomers, Michigan had 4 times more kids than seniors. That year, 37% of the state's residents were children under age 18. 8.5% of the residents were older than 65. That according to the 1970 census. Half century later, compared to 3.25 million children in 70, Michigan now has 2.1 million. That's a 35% decline. Meanwhile, the state population of folks with gray hair like me has grown from 8.9 million to 10.1 million. The senior population has exploded from about 750,000 in 1970 to 1.9 million today. There are only 3 Michigan counties today with a senior population is less than 15%. Isabella, home to Central Michigan University, Kent, home to Grand Rapids, and Ingham, home to the Michigan State University. So interesting stats as Michigan continues to age. Seniors are taking over. And again, these are people that for the most part, are retired. They're no longer working. They don't add to the funds and help work in the stores. Though I know many a senior has kept a part-time job and that sort of thing. So interesting to see the dynamics change as our demographics change, and how are we going to play that out? All right. Well, I tell you what. We've got plenty more to talk about out of Lansing, and we will do that here on the Weekend Journal. We're going to take a little break and come back. What else have we got here? Oh, yeah, the Capitol Commission wants to spend some secret money. I'll tell you about that. What's going on in Minnesota? Those lawmakers getting shot? There's some talk about that sort of thing here in Michigan because several of our lawmakers were on that guy's list. That's a terrible story. We'll discuss that too coming up. It's the Weekend Journal on News Talk 580 WTCM. We'll be right back. It's the Weekend Journal on News Talk 580, and we're back. Oh, yeah. First full day of summer. I got lots of grass to cut, and it is going to be hotter than blue blazes out there. I guess on clearing snow, it's always cold, too, so I guess it just goes with the territory. All right, let's get back to Lansing and what's going on. All right, that is the goal of the Weekend Journal here on News Talk 580. Okay, I mentioned to you about some secret funds. They're not that secret, but there's been some squawk. The Capitol Commission's job is to keep the Capitol safe, make sure that it's upgraded and in good shape. Well, they have paid for, or want to pay for, some security measures that they don't want to say what they are, because they say if you knew what they were, it would ruin the whole reason why you have them. And some folks have taken a little grumpy about that, but I guess Speaker Hall and Winnie Brinks, the Senate chair, they're like, yeah, we get it, we understand why. So I can understand that too, and I do believe in this crazy world that we live in. Having worked in that building, I always said, people talk about safety at the Capitol. We had security, we had the sergeants, we have the Capitol Police, that sort of thing, but those people that work in the offices in the Capitol, let's say somebody does get in there and is a little miffed and wants to cause havoc with the legislators, well, they're protected, but those office people, maybe not so much. So I think that whole building needs to be protected because those office workers are just doing a job, right? So I think that's important. Now, one of the other things that's happening is in light of what happened in Minnesota, there's discussion about, well, maybe legislators addresses should not be so easily found. Now, I know in the day and age of the internet, it's not that hard, but bear with me here while I explain what I'm thinking. So there is some discussion about, well, maybe we need to look at that. And the person, what's her name, Lisa McGraw of the Michigan Press Association says, Michigan law requires state lawmakers live in the districts they represent, and shield that information from the public could make it harder to identify officials who are lying. Well, I get what she's saying there, but if you put your address on the paperwork to the Secretary of State's office, isn't it their job to verify that you're there, that you actually live at 123 Main Street, you know? When I was in office, I had protesters show up in my front yard on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. They were noisy and they weren't very polite. Point being is, on all your campaign stuff, which is very public, and you know, when you're filling in all the paperwork, your address is right there because it has to be, right? All I say is the Secretary of State confirms that Jack lives at 123 Main Street, then just don't put that part of it in the paperwork, right? People in the district can know where you live because it's the district and that sort of thing. So I just think it's a simple way, because once again, just because I am the state representative doesn't mean my family is the state representative. And a home should be something that is off limits. But Jack, I'll tell you a quick story. I had a guy, I found out that was going to have the second time this was going to happen, a protest in front of my house. It was all over Facebook, so I found out who he was and his number, and I called him up. And, I said, Charlie, Rep. O'Malley here, I understand you want to have a protest in front of my house. And he's, well, if you're not doing the job, you suck. And I said, wait a minute, Charlie, have you ever called my office to talk to me? Well, no, I guess I never did that. And I said, oh, so you want to have a protest in front of my house because you don't like what I'm doing, but you've never asked to talk to me, which I would have done. So your main goal is to scare the crap out of my family. Is that your goal? Well, no. Think, people, think. He didn't show up. I appreciate that. And he never called the office to talk to me about whatever it was that was bugging him. So yeah, I take a little bit of this personal. All right, Bridget Brink, 55, former U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine, with a 29-year history in foreign diplomacy, announced that she is running for Congress in the 7th District, currently seat held by Tom Barrett. So she was born in Michigan, but she's been gone for 30 years, and she wants to come back and represent that district. I had it in here somewhere. It must be out of order. But anyway, Tom Leonard has thrown his hat in the ring for running for governor. So just so you know, that one's there. I laughed when I saw this. Sean Fain, in an article in the Detroit Free Press, in a scathing report from a court-appointed union watchdog, UAW President Sean Fain is depicted as a foul-mouthed, hot-headed leader. I find this interesting because I'm not a fan of Sean Fain. I watched how he worked, but yeah, well, I guess in a meeting, he said that if you went against his chosen few, he'd slit your throat. And he said, I was just joking about that. But the people who were sitting in the meeting told this inspector, I didn't think he was joking. So I guess from what I see out of that, the UAW still has issues. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one because we don't have time. Here's one. The Senate is working across party lines to pass legislation designed to prevent 34,000 people with sexually related crimes on their record from being tossed off the public sex offender registry. Also prevents Michigan from becoming a safe harbor that says if you're a sex offender from another state and you move into Michigan, you have to register. I guess right now that's not either being enforced that tightly or it's not in the law. And I'm going to pass on that one too. All right, here's one interesting because it's the future. Representative Bruck William Bruck wants to have rules controlling drone flights. Now, right now, anything above tree heights is the FAA, federal. And he is saying, look, There are things like Camp Grayling and the Capitol. We should be able to control drones flying around there, and there should be some rules and penalties by state law, not just federal law. And I think as we move into this drone issue, I think he's absolutely right. Let's see here. Reps John Molinar, Tim Walberg, Jack Bergman introduced bill in Congress calling for Line 5, saying it's common sense to stop future administrations from reversing any progress there. So that's happening. DTE and Consumers, Public Service Commission is wanting them to do more tree trimming and saying you got to put more money into that, which is, I think, a good idea, especially if you live in rural Michigan. You know all about it. Let's see. Another Renters' Bill of Rights has been introduced in the Senate. This would place a cap on rental application fees. Another requires minimum of one way for tenants to pay rent without additional fees. And then another allowing tenants to seal their eviction records. And a fourth would takes on the topic of additional fees by limiting landlords' ability to charge excess costs, or junk fees as they call them, snow removal and such. My only thought there is if you start putting too many restrictions, and I'm not saying these are bad, if you put too many restrictions on this, will more and more people just go to vacation rentals and stop having, home rentals? We'll see. Firefighters unions. I think this is another important one here. They want to put into a law that there needs to be staffing requirements in all the bills. So in all negotiations, have a state law that says there needs to be staffing limits in any negotiations for firefighters, because in many cases there's not enough firefighters in a region. So let's see here. Anything else? I've got seconds to go here. No, I think that's going to about do it. Hey, don't forget, we're going to pop the Weekend Journal onto Facebook and also YouTube here by Saturday afternoon, so please look for it there if you didn't catch the whole thing. Well, we'll just go from there. Join me next Saturday at 10 a.m. right here on News Talk 580 for the Weekend Journal, our discussion out of all things Lansing and political. So join us if you would. My name's Jack O'Malley, hence the Jack O'Malley's Weekend Journal. Hey, enjoy summer. It is here in northern Michigan, though be advised there are heat advisories up for this weekend. Be careful out there, right? Plenty of water. Watch out for the pets. See you next week.